And when they finally got the jobs to be the head writers or semi-head writers or some of the writers for the comics over at Marvel, they decided to take some of the fan fiction or web comics that they had developed and use some of the elements in them to make a new story. Now, true, some of them may, if they were allowed to, some of them may have adapted all the way through the fan fiction or webcomic. They may have been allowed to do that. But again, just like with Ian, and just like with anybody, they probably just used some elements out of the webcomics or fan fiction stories in a new story. The same can go for the comic book writers over at DC Comics. Those that work on Superman, Batman, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Green Lantern. There's a lot of them that are probably taking elements from the web comics and their fan fiction and put it into new stories that they create. And yes, just like probably some at Marvel maybe they were allowed to fully adapt their webcomic or fan fiction into a story. Now, it doesn't just limit itself to comics either. You take a look at all sorts of media. You take a look at television, like in animation or in live action. There's a lot of writers that have probably done the same thing, taking their fan fiction stories, their web comics, and used elements from any one of those and put them into a new episode or a new story arc or something like that for the show. Same with the movies. Yeah, that's true. Same for the movies. They probably did the same thing. And movies are a stronger exception because, hey, if you want to adapt your webcomic or your fan fiction story and make it into a movie, then so be it. You got the right. But sometimes if you don't want to directly adapt it and you just want to use elements in the movie that you're creating, then you got the right, you got the same kind of right. But again, folks, Ian Flynn's not alone in this. No. And I'm pretty sure if Ian had the ability and Ian had to say so, and Ian was given a thumbs up and the okay, he probably would have adapted Other M all the way through. There's no doubt. He probably would have done it. But he decided not to because you got to remember, unlike some of the Batman, unlike some of the X-Men, unlike some of the Spider-Man, Superman, Supergirl, Justice League, Avengers, unlike some of those titles which are sometimes aimed towards older readers, Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic Universe are all ages comics. That means people my age, and I'm about what? I'm going to be 32 this year. I'm going to be 32 in July. There's a lot of people out there, folks. A lot of people that, believe it or not, read these comics. My age, older or younger or in between, they read these comics. And that's why Ian doesn't take a chance. I mean, like I said, if he was given the thumbs up and everything, sure, he would have done it right off the bat. Hell, I'll tell you this. If I was Ian and I was given the thumbs up to say, hey, go ahead and adapt your webcomic, I would have done it. I mean, take a look at, here's another writer. Ian Brill. Ian Brill that works currently on the Disney comics for Boom Studios. And most recently has been working on Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. There's no doubt in my mind that he was probably a fan from the beginning. And probably did his own fan fiction and probably did his own webcomic. And don't think for an instant that Ian Brill wouldn't want to adapt maybe one of his fan fiction stories fully into a Rescue Ranger or a Darkwing Duck comic book. Don't think he wouldn't want to do that, because he probably would. But the thing is, just like with Sonic the Hedgehog, he, like the other Ian, that being Ian Flynn, realizes that he can't do it because Rescue Rangers is an all-ages comic. Yeah, Boom Studio Comics also has comics aimed at older and more mature readers. There's no doubt about that. You look at the website, it shows it. But again, I'm pretty sure if Ian Brill wanted to, he could do it. Or if he wanted to use elements from his fan fiction or webcomic, he'd do it. I mean, I'm pretty sure if they said, hey, if they gave Ian Brill the thumbs up to adapt all the way, adapt fully Chris Fisher's Of Mice and Mayhem webcomic, which I have a copy of, if they gave him the okay to do that, there's no doubt he would do it. There's no doubt he would do it. But he wouldn't, because that would never happen. They'd never give him the thumbs up. They'd probably give him the thumbs up to say, okay, use some elements and stuff from Of Mice and Mayhem in a future Rescue Ranger comic. They'd probably give him the thumbs up to do that, and you know what? He probably would. Again, folks, Ian Flynn's not the only one alone in this. He's not the only one that's being limited into not being able to fully adapt his infamous webcomic, which began back in 2000. I believe around late 2000 and ended around early 2003. You know, don't think he's not disappointed that he can't do that, but he is satisfied. He is happy though that he was given the thumbs up to at least use some elements from the story. So, in closing, what I'm saying is that yes, the Silver Storyarc has elements adapted from Ian Flynn's other M comic or web comic, but it is not fully adapted from the comic. It's not a full adaptation of Other M. It's got elements, but it's not full enough. It's not a full adaptation. Like I said, Ian realizes that this is an all ages comic, and that's why he can't fully adapt Other M. If he could, if Sonic Universe and Sonic the Hedgehog were under another comic book publisher, I'm pretty sure he could. But he can't. And that's what's disappointing. Some of us probably have Other M downloaded, put on disc, saved on disc somewhere. I'm pretty sure I do. And I'm pretty sure there's others out there that have it on a torrent that people can download from. But again, in closing, Other M is not being fully adapted into the Silver Storyarc. Just elements of it. Just elements of it. Just like I said, if Ian Brill, working on the Rescue Ranger comic, finally decided to adapt Of Mice and Mayhem, he'd probably only be able to adapt elements from it due to the fact that just like Sonic, Rescue Rangers is an all ages comic. So, again, Other M is not being fully adapted in the current Silver the Hedgehog story arc. Just elements of it. That's all. Just elements, my friend. And that's all I'm going to say. Tell me what you all think. I'll talk to you all later.